New footage of NBA YoungBoy kidnapping Jay, Prince goes viral. Stop scrolling, because what just hit the internet about NBA YoungBoy and Jay Prince? Yeah, nah, this one right here, this got people talking crazy. I'm talking about new footage, alleged footage that's spreading fast, and the energy around it, it's not normal. Fans are shocked, confused, and honestly, a little divided. Because at first, people brushed it off. Just another rumor. Another clip the algorithm pushed to get reactions. But then, the video started circulating. Different angles, different uploads, same moment. And suddenly, everything changed. The footage itself, grainy, chaotic, hard to fully make out but clear enough to raise questions. You hear voices in the background, tension in the air, movements that don't look random. And there's one specific moment, one that has the entire internet pausing and saying, "Hold on, what are we actually looking at right now?" Now here's where it gets even crazier. Some people are saying this is completely out of context, that it's being flipped to look like something it's not. Others? They're convinced this goes way deeper than anyone wants to admit. And let's be real, when names like NBA YoungBoy and Jay Prince end up in the same conversation like this, it's never just nothing. These are names tied to influence, power, real history in the game. So when something like this surfaces, whether it's misunderstood or not, it hits different. And the reactions? Explosive. Timelines going crazy. YouTube breakdowns dropping overnight. People picking sides without even knowing the full story. But here's the question nobody's answering yet. What actually happened in that footage? And why is it surfacing right now? Because once we really start breaking this down, you might realize this situation. It's way more complicated than it looks. And trust me, this is just the beginning. Alright, so let's slow this down and really walk through how this whole situation even started. Because what people are seeing now didn't just come out of nowhere. It built up quietly, piece by piece, until it hit that moment where the internet just couldn't ignore it anymore. And if you've been paying attention to how things move in the culture, you already know moments like this don't just happen randomly. It all traces back to a late night upload. No big announcement, no verified page, just a clip about 17 seconds long posted from an account nobody really recognized. At first, it barely got any traction. A few hundred views, some confused comments, people scrolling past it like it was just another recycled video. But then something shifted. Someone with a larger following reposted it with a caption that read, "This don't look right." And just like that, the algorithm picked it up. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Twitter threads, reaction pages, group chats, everybody had an opinion, but nobody had the full picture. And that's when people started connecting dots, or at least trying to. Because in the middle of all that chaos, fans began pointing out figures in the video that they believed were tied to NBA YoungBoy and people associated with Jay Prince. Not confirmed, not verified, but close enough to spark a serious conversation. Now, here's where things get intense. The energy in the footage didn't feel casual. You could hear raised voices, sharp, quick, like something was already escalating before the camera even started rolling. One person in the background says, "Chill, chill. It ain't even that." But the tone? It didn't match the words. It sounded like someone trying to calm a situation that was already out of control. And then there's that moment everyone keeps replaying. A sudden movement. Someone stepping forward. Another person pulling back slightly. It's quick, blink, and you'll miss it, but it's just enough to make people question everything. Was it confrontation? Miscommunication? Or something being completely taken out of context? Fans are split right down the middle. One side is saying, "Y'all reaching. This is nothing, just a regular situation being blown up for views." But the other side, they're not buying that at all. They're pointing out body language, tone, timing, breaking it down like it's a full investigation. And honestly, that's what makes this whole thing feel different. It's not just Gossip. It feels like people are trying to decode something bigger. And then the reactions started coming in. Not direct responses, but the kind that make you stop and think. One affiliate posted, "Respect don't come with confusion. No names mentioned. No context given. Just that line." Another post popped up saying, "Certain lines don't get crossed twice." Again, no explanation. But when you put those messages next to the timing of the video going viral, it starts to feel less like coincidence. Meanwhile, fans close to both sides began going back and forth online. Subtle at first, little comments, emojis, indirect statements, but you could feel the tension building. One user wrote, "Y'all don't even know what led up to that moment, and that right there, that added fuel to everything." Because now it's not just about what people saw, it's about what they didn't see. And that's the part nobody can answer yet. What happened before that clip started recording? Because if there's one thing the internet does, every single time it reacts to the moment, not the full story. And in situations like this, that missing context, it can change everything. Some fans even started digging into past interactions, trying to figure out if there was any history, any tension, anything that could explain why this moment felt so charged. Old clips resurfacing, old interviews getting reanalyzed, people looking for patterns where there might not even be any. But whether it's real tension or just perception, the impact is the same. The conversation is already out there. And now, it's moving faster than anyone can control. Because once something like this hits the timeline, it doesn't slow down, it evolves. People add their own narratives, their own interpretations. And before you know it, the story becomes bigger than the footage itself. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. And just when people thought they had seen everything the clip had to offer, a second angle surfaced. Not clearer, but somehow even more unsettling. This time, the audio was louder. You could hear footsteps, voices overlapping, and one line that stood out enough to send the internet into another spiral. "This ain't what you think it is." Now that right there, that line alone had people debating for hours, because who said it and why became the center of attention. The new footage didn't confirm anything, but it added pressure, more questions, more speculation, and suddenly, what felt like a quick viral moment started turning into a full-blown situation. People began slowing the video down frame by frame, zooming in, pointing out details most wouldn't even notice on a normal watch. A hoodie logo, a voice tone, the way someone turned their head at a specific second. It was like the internet turned into a courtroom overnight, and everybody thought they had evidence. And then came the breakdown channels. You already know how that goes. Creators posting hour-long analyses, thumbnails with shocked faces, titles asking questions they don't really have answers to. But what made this different was the confidence. Some were speaking like they knew exactly what happened behind the scenes. One creator said, "There's a reason nobody's addressing this directly," while another claimed, "This is bigger than what's being shown." And whether they were right or not, people were listening. Meanwhile, fans tied to NBA YoungBoy started defending him heavily, saying the situation didn't match his current energy, his current focus. Comments like, "He not even moving like that anymore," and "Y'all forcing a narrative" began flooding timelines. On the other side, supporters connected to Jay. Prince emphasized respect and reputation. Words like structure, principles, and boundaries kept coming up in discussions, almost like people were reminding each other that certain things don't get taken lightly. And that's where the divide really deepened. Because now it wasn't just about a clip, it became about interpretation, about loyalty, about how people see power and influence in the culture. Some fans were treating it like entertainment, while others were taking it very seriously, like something meaningful might actually be unfolding behind the scenes. Then came another twist. A user claimed the footage was recorded days earlier than people originally thought. Not the same night, not the same timeline everyone assumed. And that changed everything again. Because if the timing was off, then what triggered the release now? Why did it suddenly appear at this exact moment? That question alone sparked a whole new wave of theories. Some said it was intentional, a calculated drop. Others believed it leaked without permission, and a few people even suggested it was connected to something bigger that hadn't come to light yet. No proof, no confirmation, just theories stacking on top of each other, building a story that kept getting more complex by the hour. And in the middle of all this noise, silence. No clear statement, no direct response, nothing that shuts it down or confirms it. And sometimes, that silence, it speaks louder than anything else. Because when people expect a reaction and don't get one, they start filling in the gaps themselves. They start assuming, interpreting, turning small details into big conclusions. And that's exactly what was happening here. At the same time, a few individuals who claimed to be close to the situation started hinting at things without fully explaining them. One comment read, "Y'all seeing the surface, not the reason." Another said, "Context changes everything, but it's not my place to speak." Those kinds of statements, they don't calm anything down, they make it worse. Because now people feel like there's a hidden layer they're not being told. And that curiosity, it keeps the story alive. Even people who weren't initially interested started tuning in, trying to figure out what the big deal was. That's how you know something has really taken off, when it pulls in an audience that wasn't even looking for it. But here's the thing that stands out the most. Nobody can agree on what they're actually seeing. One group sees tension, another sees misunderstanding, another thinks it's being exaggerated beyond recognition. And until there's clarity, if there ever is, this situation is going to keep evolving, shifting, and pulling more people into the conversation. Because right now, it's not just a video anymore. It's a narrative in motion. And just when it felt like the situation couldn't get any more layered, something else happened that shifted the tone completely. Not a new video, not a clearer angle, but a voice note allegedly tied to someone present that night started circulating in private chats before leaking onto public timelines, and the moment people heard it, the conversation took a sharper turn. The voice in the recording sounded tense, almost frustrated, like someone replaying the situation in their head. "It wasn't supposed to go like that," the voice said. "People don't understand what led up to it." Now that line right there, it didn't explain anything directly, but it confirmed one thing. There was more to the story than what the clip showed. And once that audio hit the internet, emotions ran high. Fans who were already on edge started doubling down on their opinions. Some said the voice note proved everything was being misunderstood, that the moment in the footage was just a reaction to something earlier. Others felt the opposite, saying it sounded like damage control, like someone trying to soften what really happened before things got out of hand. Meanwhile, discussions around NBA YoungBoy started getting more intense. Supporters pointed out how often he's been misunderstood in the past, how quickly narratives form around him without full context. Comments like, "Every time his name comes up, people jump to conclusions," began trending across fan pages. On the flip side, people analyzing anything connected to Jay, Prince leaned into the idea that situations involving him are rarely random, that there's always structure behind what happens, even if it's not visible right away. And that contrast, it added another layer to the divide. Because now people weren't just debating the footage, they were debating reputation, history, and how both names carry weight in completely different ways. One side rooted in raw, unpredictable energy, the other tied to calculated, long-standing influence. And when those two worlds even appear to collide, it creates a kind of tension that people can't ignore. Then came another unexpected twist. A slowed-down version of the clip surfaced enhanced audio, cleaned up visuals, not perfect, but clearer than before. And in that version, you could hear a different tone in the background. Someone saying, "We ain't here for that." Almost like a warning. Not aggressive, but firm. And that one line, it changed how some people interpreted the entire moment, because suddenly, It didn't feel like chaos, it felt like something being contained. Like whatever was happening could have gone further, but didn't. That realization split opinions even more. Some viewers started saying, "See? Nothing really happened. People stepped in before anything escalated." Others argued, "The fact it even got to that point says enough." And that's when the conversation stopped being about facts and started being about perspective. At the same time, reactions from people loosely connected to the industry kept surfacing, subtle but noticeable. One post read, "Not everything needs to be explained to the public," while another said, "Real situations don't play out the way y'all expect." Those kinds of statements didn't clarify anything, but they kept the energy alive. And then there was the silence again. No official word, no direct acknowledgement, just the noise of the internet getting louder and louder, filling in gaps with speculation. And in situations like this, that silence creates its own kind of pressure, because the longer nothing is said, the more people assume there's something to say. Some fans even started questioning the timing again. Why now? Why did this surface at a moment when everything else seemed relatively quiet? No major announcements. No obvious conflicts happening publicly. And yet, here comes a clip that instantly shifts attention and pulls multiple narratives into one place. That question alone kept people locked in. Because if timing is intentional, even slightly, it changes how everything is perceived. It turns a random moment into something strategic, whether it actually is or not. And that's the thing about situations like this. They don't need confirmation to grow, they just need attention. Right now, every repost, every reaction video, every comment adds another layer to the story. People aren't just watching anymore, they're participating, building theories, connecting dots that may or may not exist. And the more it spreads, the harder it becomes to separate what's real, what's assumed, and what's completely misunderstood. Because at this point, the footage itself is only one piece of the puzzle. Everything around it, that's where the real story is taking shape. And just when it felt like the narrative had reached its peak, the situation took another unexpected turn, this time not from leaked footage or audio, but from what people started noticing in the background of everything. It wasn't loud, it wasn't obvious, but for those paying close attention, it was enough to shift the entire conversation again. People began pointing out that certain posts, ones that were gaining traction, started disappearing, clips getting taken down, accounts going private, comments being deleted. And you already know how the internet reacts when things start vanishing. Instead of calming things down, it does the exact opposite. It makes everything feel more real. Because now the question isn't just what happened, it becomes, why is this being hidden? And that right there, that's when curiosity turns into obsession. Fans started archiving everything: screen recordings, screenshots, re-uploads of re-uploads. It turned into a race who could keep the footage alive the longest before it disappeared again. And with every version that resurfaced, people claimed they noticed something new. A different voice, a different angle, a detail they missed before. One user pointed out, "Look at how everyone else is reacting, not just the main moment." Another said, "The energy in that room was off way before anything happened." And those kinds of observations, they pulled more people deeper into analyzing not just the clip, but the atmosphere around it. At the same time, discussions around NBA YoungBoy started shifting slightly, not just defense anymore, but concern. Some fans were saying the situation felt like unnecessary pressure, like his name was being dragged into something bigger than what was actually shown. Comments like, "Why is he always at the center of these narratives?" and "People need to stop assuming without facts" started trending across multiple platforms. On the other side, conversations tied to Jay, Prince leaned more into legacy and control. People began emphasizing how situations connected to him rarely stay surface level. That even when things look small, they often carry weight behind the scenes. And whether that's true or not, it shaped how people interpreted everything they were seeing. And then, another twist nobody expected. A short clip surfaced not from the original footage, but from earlier that same day, allegedly. Different setting, calmer environment. But what caught attention was the interaction. A brief exchange between individuals believed to be connected to both sides. No tension, no raised voices, just normal conversation. And that changed everything again. Because now people were asking if things were calm earlier, what happened in between? What shifted? That question opened up a whole new wave of speculation. Some said it proved the later footage was being misunderstood, that whatever tension appeared wasn't part of a bigger issue. Others argued the opposite, saying it showed how quickly situations can escalate when something behind the scenes changes. And again, no confirmation, just pieces. At the same time, a few insiders, people who usually stay quiet, started dropping subtle hints. Nothing direct, but enough to keep the conversation alive. One comment read, "Y'all focusing on the moment, not the message." Another said, "Everything isn't meant to be explained publicly." And those statements, they didn't resolve anything. They made it feel like there was a layer the audience wasn't meant to fully understand. Meanwhile, the internet kept doing what it does best, turning fragments into full narratives. People began connecting this situation to completely unrelated moments, old interviews, past collaborations, even indirect comments from months ago, trying to build a timeline that made sense of something that, at its core, was still unclear. And the more people tried to make sense of it, the more complicated it became. Because now, there were multiple versions of the same story floating around, each one slightly different. Each one backed by someone who was convinced they had it right. And in the middle of all that noise, still no clear answer. No confirmation of what the footage actually shows, no explanation of what led up to it, no statement that puts everything into perspective. Just silence and speculation filling the space. But here's what makes this moment stand out more than anything else. It's not slowing down. Usually, stories like this peak and fade. People move on, the timeline resets, but this, it keeps evolving. Every few hours, there's something new, a new angle, a new theory, a new reaction that pulls people right back in. And that tells you something important. This isn't just about a video anymore. It's about perception, about how quickly narratives form when information is incomplete, and about how, sometimes, the story people believe becomes more powerful than the truth itself. And right now, that story is still being written in real time. And after everything we just broke down, all the clips, the reactions, the theories, the silence, you gotta ask yourself, what do you really think is going on here? Because at this point, this isn't just about a viral video anymore. It's about interpretation. It's about how quickly the internet can take one moment and turn it into 10 different stories. Some people are convinced the situation involving NBA YoungBoy is being completely misunderstood. Others feel like there's way more going on behind the scenes, especially with a name like Jay, Prince being mentioned in the same breath. And the truth is, we still don't have all the answers. What happened before that footage? Why did it surface now? And is there a bigger picture that hasn't been revealed yet? Those questions are still wide open. But one thing is clear, fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the community is definitely divided. Some are calling it overhyped. Others are saying this might be one of those situations that looks small on the surface but carries real weight underneath. So now, I'm passing it to you. If you've been watching this unfold, I want to know, what do you see when you look at that footage? Do you think it's being taken out of context? Or do you feel like there's something deeper that people aren't saying out loud? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. I'm reading everything. And if you want more breakdowns like this, real conversations, real analysis, no surface level takes, make sure you tap that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Because trust me, if anything else comes out about this situation, you already know we're going to be right here breaking it down first.